Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know, first, NASA's Artemis 2 mission faces a no-escape scenario as an ISS emergency reveals fatal flaws in astronaut rescue protocols. We'll explore how the lack of universal docking standards could transform risk management for future Moon and Mars missions. Second, the US threatens 100% tariffs on South Korean and Taiwanese chips, escalating from incentives to coercion to onshore semiconductor manufacturing. We'll analyse why this weaponization of investment is a turning point and how it could affect global supply chains and competitive dynamics. Third, Google hits a $4 trillion market cap as a US judge declares its search an illegal monopoly, ordering a radical share of its index. So we'll discuss why this remedy may be too late for the AI search era and what it means for the future of online competition. Fourth, 400 TikTok content moderators were fired in London just before a union vote, sparking a major legal battle over union-busting claims. In this episode, we'll break down this critical labour dispute and what it signals for the future of human content moderation versus AI. Fifth, lithium-ion battery fires expose a fatal flaw in smoke alarms, as legacy safety standards fail to address modern explosive threats. Today we'll take a closer look at this technological gap and its implications for the shift toward AI and safety as a service models. Let's start with a story that sounds like science fiction, but is all too real. The entire crew of the International Space Station just had to make an emergency return to Earth. The reason? A single astronaut had a medical issue that couldn't be treated in orbit. This incident highlights a shocking rule of space travel. You can't just send one sick person home. If one astronaut needs to evacuate, the entire crew of that spacecraft has to go with them. It's an all-or-nothing escape plan because you can't leave the others stranded without their ride. What's not immediately obvious is that this isn't just about not leaving people behind. It's a fundamental hardware problem. There is no universal front door in space. The US and its partners use a system called the International Docking System Standard, or IDSS, but Russia uses its own system and China uses another. They are not compatible. A SpaceX Dragon capsule literally cannot dock with a Russian port, and a Russian Soyuz can't connect to an American one. This lack of a universal standard is a mix of technical history and modern geopolitics, meaning in an emergency, you can't just call your international neighbours for a ride. You are stuck with your own lifeboat. For the ISS, this built-in lifeboat can get everyone back to Earth in a matter of hours. But even this system has vulnerabilities. While the ISS crew can get home, the resilience of our lifeboat supply chain is a huge concern. China, for instance, has demonstrated an incredible rapid response capability once launching a rescue mission just 16 days after a spacecraft was damaged in orbit. In another case, their Shenzhou craft docked with their station in a record 3.5 hours. A SpaceX Crew Dragon mission, by contrast, typically takes between 15 and 27 hours just to reach the ISS after launch. This difference in turnaround time highlights just how varied emergency response capabilities are around the world. And this safety net is about to be cut. As we push further into space, the risks skyrocket. For future missions to the Moon, an emergency return would take at least 3 to 4 days. If that 3-day wait seems long, the situation for Mars missions is on another level entirely. When we finally go to Mars, there is no quick trip home. As one astrophysicist at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics bluntly puts it, if something goes wrong on Mars, you're going to have to wait 2 years for the next bus. 2 years, that's the reality confronting the next generation of explorers. This reality forces us to ask what scientists are actually planning for these nightmare scenarios. For a Mars mission, there is no hospital and no evacuation. This means astronauts need to become their own doctors and ethicists. Researchers are developing autonomous medical systems and training crews in advanced life support using incredibly realistic simulators. They are preparing astronauts to make life or death triage decisions about limited resources, like who gets the last of the oxygen or medical supplies. The psychological burden of making those calls and living with the consequences for years is a massive area of research for NASA right now. And this isn't some distant sci-fi scenario. The risk is ramping up right now. In the coming weeks, NASA's Artemis 2 mission plans to send astronauts beyond the Moon for the first time since 1972. They will be traveling in a single capsule with no spare spacecraft ready on the ground. Once they are beyond Earth orbit, there is no possible evacuation plan. If anything goes wrong, it will just be them, mission control, and the darkness of space. Speaking of high-stakes international maneuvering, the US just delivered an ultimatum to some of its closest technology allies. The message from US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was blunt. South Korean and Taiwanese chip makers could face tariffs of up to 100% unless they commit to significantly increasing production on American soil. A while back, we flagged this very threat when Washington floated a 100% levy as leverage on TSMC. The difference now is that it's explicitly pointed at Seoul and Taipei, not just a theoretical bargaining chip. This marks a dramatic shift from incentives to coercion. We've all heard about the CHIPS Act, which offered billions in subsidies to lure companies to build in the US. This new threat is the stick, not the carrot. It's essentially saying, invest here or we will punish you. This weaponization of investment carries huge geopolitical risks, potentially pushing allies to build their own supply chains completely independent of the United States. And as we discussed a while back, the economics of building in the US higher construction costs and slower timelines than Taiwan have been, the stubborn obstacle. Today's escalation looks designed to bulldoze right through that problem. This isn't just a future threat. The first shot has already been fired. US President Donald Trump recently signed a proclamation imposing a 25% tariff on certain advanced artificial intelligence chips. This action directly targets high-performance processors like NVIDIA's H200 and AMD's MI325X, which are the cornerstones of the AI boom. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The tariff was issued under national security grounds, but it includes a massive exemption for imports intended for US data centers. This detail is crucial because data centers are the primary destination for these exact chips. This suggests the initial tariff might be more of a targeted warning shot than a full-blown economic blockade designed to avoid disrupting America's own tech infrastructure while still sending a powerful message. In response, South Korea's Trade Minister Yo Han-koo stated the immediate impact would be limited because the country's main memory chip exports are currently excluded. In the same breath, however, Minister Yo cautioned that it was not yet time to be reassured, highlighting the profound uncertainty over when and how a potential second phase of tariffs could be expanded. A while back, we said allies like South Korea and Japan were watching nervously. This is the first clear readout from Seoul that they see the risk coming, and he's right to be worried. After all, those advanced AI processors are basically useless without something called high bandwidth memory, or HBM, and the HBM market is utterly dominated by South Korea. We're talking about companies like SK Hynix, which alone holds over 60% of the global market. The US can't have a domestic AI industry without these memory chips, which makes HBM the next logical pressure point in this escalating chip war. The White House fact sheet confirms that broader tariffs on semiconductors are on the table to incentivize domestic manufacturing. The initial 25% tariff is just the opening move in a high-stakes campaign to decrease reliance on chip manufacturers in Asia. The core conflict is now crystal clear, laid out by the Commerce Secretary himself. Build your factories in the US or risk being completely priced out of the world's largest market. We were just talking about governments trying to control the chip industry. Now, let's turn to a case where a government has just ruled against a tech giant in a massive way. The situation presents a fascinating duality. Google's parent company Alphabet just became the fourth company in history to reach a $4 trillion market cap, while simultaneously a US judge has declared its core business an illegal monopoly. This isn't just a fine. A landmark antitrust ruling found Google illegally cornered the online search market, and the proposed fix is an absolute bombshell. The government wanted to break up the company, but the judge refused. Instead, he ordered something far more intricate. Google must share parts of its most valuable asset, its search index, with qualified competitors. Interestingly enough, experts are already questioning if this remedy is too little, too late. The future of search isn't just a list of blue links, it's AI-driven answer engines. Think about Google's new AI overviews that give you a summary at the top of the page. These rely on massive AI models, not just the traditional index the judge is focused on. The ruling, then, might be trying to solve yesterday's problem while the entire game is changing. Studies show these AI summaries have already cut clicks to the top search result by over 30%, meaning the index itself is becoming less important. Think about that. The judge is demanding Google hand over portions of its massive map of the internet. He even ordered Google to let certain competitors display the tech giant's search results as their own, giving upstarts resources they need to innovate. But this creates what some in the industry call the syndication paradox. While it sounds like a win for competition, it might actually entrench Google's power. By forcing Google to syndicate its results, the court could create a whole class of rivals that are just Google in a different skin. They become dependent on Google's technology and never have a reason to build their own truly innovative search engines. It risks a future with a dozen search engines that all give you the exact same answers. Google is now appealing the entire ruling. Its Vice President for Regulatory Affairs, Leanne Mulholland, went on the record, firing back with a direct quote, "People use Google because they want to, not because they're forced to." She argues the judge's mandates would, quote, "risk Americans' privacy and discourage competitors from building their own products, ultimately stifling the innovation that keeps the US at the forefront of global technology." Now, when you hear that claim about risking privacy, it's important to understand the debate around it. Some critics call this privacy washing, using a legitimate concern like privacy as a shield to protect a business advantage. They argue that proven technical methods exist to make this data anonymous. So the open question is whether this is a genuine technical hurdle or a strategic argument to protect its data monopoly. What's more, some observers already viewed the judge's remedies as too lenient, yet Google is fighting even those requesting a complete pause on implementing the orders. This is where we see a huge difference in how regulators are thinking about the internet's future. The US ruling focuses on Google's traditional search index, trying to fix the market as it exists today. Meanwhile, the EU is already looking ahead, investigating the impact of Google's new AI tools on publishers. This divergence shows two very different philosophies on how to regulate big tech. That battle over Google's future is playing out in the courts. And speaking of legal battles, another tech giant is facing a major fight, but this one is about its workers. In London, just 1 week before they were scheduled to vote on forming a union, about 400 TikTok content moderators were fired. Now, those former employees are launching legal action accusing the social media giant of oppressive and intimidating union busting. The moderators, represented by the Communication Workers Union, claim the firings were a direct move to stop them from organising. This isn't just happening in a vacuum. You know, the case is a major test for UK labour law, which has specific protections against unfair dismissal and requires employers to consult with workers during redundancies, especially when a union is forming. This makes the UK a critical battleground for tech worker rights in Europe. So what was the fight about? According to the union, these workers have the most dangerous job on the internet. Their role was to protect TikTok's 30 million UK users from the platform's most extreme content, including child sex abuse material, executions, and war. The psychological toll of this work is immense. While AI can filter some of the most obvious violations, it leaves human moderators to deal with the most ambiguous, complex, and emotionally draining cases. This effectively concentrates the trauma. Research shows that content moderators in these roles have incredibly high rates of mental health issues, with studies reporting PTSD rates as high as 26% and depression rates reaching a staggering 48%. They wanted a collective voice to negotiate the psychological toll of the work, arguing they were being asked to do too much with too few resources. The union's National Officer for Tech Workers put it bluntly, this is holding TikTok to account for union busting. TikTok strongly denies the allegations, calling the legal claim baseless. The company says the layoffs were part of a global restructuring and points to its increasing use of AI, which it claims now automatically removes 91% of violating posts and has reduced moderators' exposure to graphic content by 76%. But what really brought this to a head was the next development. When TikTok presented this plan to the UK Parliament, it failed to provide the data or risk assessments to back up these claims. This lack of transparency is why so many people are skeptical. The company is making a huge claim about its technology but hasn't shown the proof. And even if that 91% number is accurate, think about what's left in the other 9%. That's where you find the most nuanced and dangerous material, new hate speech, dog whistles, complex disinformation, and culturally specific abuse that AI is not yet trained to detect. Removing human experts who can spot these emerging threats creates a massive blind spot in the platform's safety net. Critics aren't buying it. A director from the tech justice nonprofit Foxglove, which is backing the case, said TikTok has made its position clear. Union busting and trampling on our labour laws comes first. The safety of its users, including millions of children, and the well-being of its essential safety workers comes last. The core of this legal battle now rests on a single explosive question. A partner at the law firm representing the workers framed the entire conflict, stating that this case shows how the public should not allow the fig leaf of AI cost savings to obscure vital safety concerns. From the hidden dangers of content moderation to a hidden danger much closer to home, there's a new fire threat and it's explosive. One researcher describes it this way: nothing's happening then. Outgassing and boom, boom, boom. All these explosions. That's the sound of a lithium-ion battery, like one from an e-bike, catching fire. So the thing is, what's actually happening during that outgassing phase is terrifying. Before you see any smoke or feel any heat, the battery is already failing. It starts releasing a cloud of toxic and highly flammable gases, like hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Traditional smoke detectors aren't looking for these gases. By the time they go off, your room could already be filled with an explosive gas mixture, just waiting for a spark. The core issue is that the smoke alarm on your ceiling, with technology that has barely changed in decades, is struggling to keep up with these sudden modern threats. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The standards that govern these devices are lagging dangerously behind. For example, the main standard in the US, UL 217, has been updated, but it still doesn't specifically test for the unique chemical signatures of a lithium-ion battery fire. Updating these life-saving standards is a slow process, often facing hurdles from industry pushback and the sheer complexity of getting everyone to agree. The stakes could not be higher. According to one fire and rescue service, people are about 10 times more likely to die in a fire if there isn't a working smoke alarm. Yet, a recent survey suggested nearly 4 million adults in the UK might be living in a home without any alarm at all. In the US, an estimated 16% of all households do not have a functioning one. The industry is now in a race against itself. Nuisance alarms cause frustrated homeowners to disable the very devices meant to save them. As one fire alarm company CEO stated, "If we're producing technology our customers can't live with, that's our failing." In response, a new generation of alarms is emerging. One company, Kid, has developed a subscription service in the US that links to the Ring doorbell app, using trained agents to verify an alarm and call for help. This decision brings both benefits and comes with inherent risks. It's a shift to what the industry calls safety as a service. For a monthly fee, you get professional monitoring, but applying this model, long used by security firms, to fire safety could create a two-tiered system where those who can afford the subscription get a faster response while others don't. But that's not the whole picture. Researchers have now developed an AI system that can turn almost any camera from CCTV to your phone into a smart fire detector. It monitors the size, shape, and growth of a blaze in video feeds to avoid false alarms. This development pits two different futures against each other. On one hand, you have this AI vision. Its big advantage is speed and location. It can see a fire start in seconds and tell the difference between real flames and a fog machine. On the other hand, you have super sensitive physical sensors that can literally smell the air for the tiniest smoke particles, offering incredibly early warnings. The big question is whether one will win out, or if the safest home of the future will need a hybrid of both, a system that can see the fire and smell it too. Believe it or not, this isn't just a theoretical problem. One of the top consultants who studies smoke alarms for a living was shocked to find a fire starting from his own tumble dryer. The technology is evolving at lightning speed, but the core danger remains unchanged. Living without a working alarm makes a fatal fire 10 times more likely.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.